I'm retweeting that.
Oh, no, not again.
You gotta like that.
That tweeter just tweeted all over the equipment.
Do you, or do you not, know about the bird?
Join the conversation on Twitter. Find us at 903-WHPC.
I'm not cleaning that up.
Hey, what's your big idea?
That's 903-WHPC on Twitter. From the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
This is Dennis Pitzenberger from Sticker Shock, and if you're not listening to Motormouth Radio, boy, you are lost in the smoke of the burnout. Make sure and tune in each and every week because these guys are exactly what you want to hear. Real car guys, real talk, every single weekend.
Some nights are long.
All right, we're back on Motormouth Radio, Long Island's only automotive talk show, 516-572-7440, talking about the flares on Joe's pants. No, it was fender flares, I'm sorry. I knew something was flared, I wasn't quite sure.
I can't fit in my flared pants anymore.
All right.
That's about 120 pounds ago. Come on, give me a break here.
Right. So, Ray Guarino, Joe D, with Steve Linden.
They do make excellent polishing cloths, though.
They do, yes, you're right, because they are floor dusters, or actually the bell bottoms, and I actually had, back in the day, it was called the Big Bell.
Yeah, elephant
bells.
Yeah.
Had those too, yes, sorry, Bobby.
Today's history lesson has been brought to you by
the 70s.
Yeah.
Because we were there. Yeah. So, Steve, let's, last segment, where are we going to go?
How about resto-mods, if you guys like that?
We love resto-mods, you know that.
You know, what?
Actually, we have a flashy thing, so let's go there first. Let's hit this and say hi. You're on with the Motor Mouths and Steve Linden.
Hello, gentlemen. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good.
Hey,
how are you?
Hey, Bob, what's happening?
Everything's good. I'm making waffles for the girls.
Hey, that's what we had this morning at our house, too.
Waffles, yes.
I didn't have a whole lot of success because I hadn't seasoned the waffle maker in ages. So I had to go through some sacrificial waffles, if you will.
You know what? We had a couple that hit the trash can as well before we got it all sorted out. But you know what? The ones that made it were delicious.
That's exactly where we're at.
Cool.
So I had one, Steve, I enjoyed your article 2 weeks ago that you had for the winterizing. It was great.
Thank you.
And I have the standard question for your guest, and that is, Steve, I recognize you have probably a whole corral. So share the build on the Bronco. What are you building?
On the Bronco? On my daily driver Bronco?
Oh, because you said you were stitching the steering wheel.
Oh, yeah. It's it's a 1996 Bronco, the last year, with 341,000 miles on it.
Jeez. God the bless.
And I'm proud to say the engine has never ever been opened on the truck.
Knocking wood while you say that.
Yes. And no, it's not an old Bronco; it's a new Bronco, so nothing special in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is that powered?
It's a 351.
351, because some of them came with the 302s, right?
Yeah. Yep.
351s were hard to get a hold of. Is that the Eddie Bauer edition?
It was an Eddie Bauer edition. It still is an Eddie Bauer edition, but I kind of wanted to update it a little bit. So about a year ago, I had it painted so it's all one color. So it doesn't look like 1990s anymore. And
right.
But yeah, it is. It's an Eddie Bauer. Yep.
Well, I enjoy your print, and thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Love your program.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, boy, that's Bob making those waffles.
Somewhere there's a beer being opened.
Takes me back to breakfast. Right, Tom in Massapequa was doing it now. So, resto-mods.
Yeah, it's
we were doing some of that on the off in between time. Yeah, we started the resto-mod conversation.
I heard my name come up.
Yes.
Well, that's what got me thinking about it when I saw your car this morning. You know, on the outside, it looks basically stock, but when you look closely, you made some of these changes that people are making. You know, the Tremec 5-speed and the real disc brake, so the car can actually stop. And you know, it's just interesting because 5 or 10 years ago, you used to mention resto-mods, and people used to turn their nose up.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people they're just so much more accepted. Half the appraisals I do are resto-mods.
Sure. Now, how do you do that? Because with an appraisal, you have to look for comps.
Yeah.
And back in the day, there really were no comps because guys were the pioneers. Right. You know, now most of the stuff that I bought, the stuff I bought is all from companies that make that component. So suspension components were made.
Yes.
Transmission made. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't have to be MacGyver and build the stuff. I just had to go and find it and install it.
Yeah.
So how do you do that on the appraisal end?
Well, it's actually easy. I mean, appraisals are based on exactly what you just said, comparables. They're not based on exacts, so it just has to be something similar. And nowadays, there's absolutely no shortage of resto-mods. People just take them to different levels. Some of them are brakes and a transmission. Some of them are brakes and transmission and vintage air and rack and pinion steering. And, you can take it to any level that you want.
That's what I'm saying. There's so many variables. And there's, Joe and I both work on stuff. We see the stuff that's not done well. Like, just because you buy the good stuff doesn't mean you put it in correctly.
Yeah. It's that's really, really very true. These Cobra replicas that you see on the road all over the place.
Sure.
That's a perfect example of that. You can get these things that were built literally in somebody's driveway, or you can get them that were built in a factory.
Yeah.
And it really, the build quality does vary from horrible to professional, and it's the same thing with resto mods.
Sure. Yeah, guys go. I built mine in my garage, but a lot of guys they'll farm it out to shops to do different work for you. I'm not painting mine. It's going to be done by a friend. I'll have it painted in a real shop.
Sure.
But the other stuff, if you're competent enough to do it, by all means, do it. What it did is it lengthens the life and the usability of the car, because now, like you said, you have modern brakes, AC, you have suspension that now is better. Tire quality is right there with anything new on the road. I guess.
Well, I think that's the thing behind it too, is that sometimes using a real original car from, like, say, the 60s or any era, the further back you go, people now with modern cars are spoiled by brakes that stop, steering that steers, comfortable climate control,
HVAC. You know what I like about driving my Pontiac? One of the things I noticed immediately when I started driving it again: visibility. Wow, I'm like, it's like being in a Pacer. It's like a fishbowl of windows. Like, hey, I can see this
Lots
guy
of glass,
with a glance over him. Like in driver's ed, they taught you glance over your shoulder.
That's right.
Because you can see out the back. Now try that in a new Camaro.
No, you can't
glance
do it.
over your shoulder, you see the interior color.
Right.
You see the seat.
Yeah, it's like sitting in a bunker. And it's not just that car. They're out there. They just don't give you the glass exposure like they
Which
used
is
to.
for safety purposes. The doors all got hard. You can't do the Cougine lean out the door. Because you're doing this, especially if you're short. You're.
Yep.
Okay, had to bring up the short part, didn't you?
Me too.
Okay.
I mean, I've driven cars like that. Even my wife's Cruise, I have to raise my arm to get it out to them.
You see, it's not so bad because they have cameras now. They have cameras out the back or whatever. You have to be able to turn around and look out the window. You don't have to do that no more.
You want to look good driving down the boulevard, Joe. You want to kind of cruise.
Yeah, nobody even sees it. They see the top of your head. That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, these new cars they're really very different. I get to travel around the country, so I get to rent a lot of cars. And when I do, I try to, if I can, I'll rent a Camaro or a Challenger or something like that.
Yeah.
And what you were saying is absolutely true. You can see forward out of these cars. And even then, it's interesting. You get in a new Camaro or a new Challenger, pull up to a traffic light where you would pull up in your normal car.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you're like, where's the traffic light?
You know what you need?
Yeah. You have to stop 3 car lengths back.
You need the thing that went on the dash of the Tri-5 Chevys, that lens.
A trafficator.
Right.
Yeah.
It would show you. It's like a heads-up display for traffic lights. That's why I like driving my Fiat, especially with the top down, because no matter where I stop, I just look up. It's like, because that car's got a low.
You're out in the world. You're not sealed off.
Yeah.
I have a question from our eye in the sky, Jim, and Steve. He would like to know what you think the general condition of the car community on Long Island is these days.
That's a broad question.
The general condition.
Maybe state or. What do you think's going on out there on our Long Island here?
I think Long Island, I personally am seeing the same thing that I'm seeing everywhere else in the country. I'm seeing, a lot of the post-war cars are not quite as desirable, but people are still, actively going after the 60s and 70s cars. I see a lot of them are being resto-modded or modified so that they can be used. I see that a lot of people just don't really care so much about originality like I did or do so I see it still active, but I see it changing.
Yeah, so we're kind of following the trends of the country.
I think so, yeah. The only other thing that I see that probably would be important to interject is I see a lot of investors getting involved now.
Yeah.
And what we kind of call the best of the best. They're
right.
They're pulling them off of the market. They're going.
Okay,
that's the best of the best. We hang with the guys that take the rest. So like the guys who go into the 4-door crowd now because they can't get the 2-door. And that's that's a segment that's becoming hot. Actually, people aren't buying the 4-doors and the wagons that they didn't want to look at before.
Yeah.
Again, because it's of just the cost.
There's a gentleman out east. He's a retired police officer who I know who collects 4-door cars.
Okay.
And at the price point that he wants to get into, he can get some absolutely fantastic cars.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain brilliance to that. If you don't have a problem with 2 extra doors, you can get some really great cars.
Depending on what you want out of the car. Like if you're sitting in the driver's seat, it looks just like the 2-door.
Well, it's like I've told people, it's like an El Camino or Ranchero. From the seat forward, it looks like the car that it was built on. The platform it was built on.
And if you have a family, it's great.
Taking the kids out for ice cream becomes a lot easier.
I've actually said that to guys who are a little younger and they have younger families. Like, hey, get the 4-door, man, because your kids will go in the back. It's you may have to, depending on the age of the car, you may have to install some seatbelts in the rear. I've done that on many of my cars. So that you can put in a car seat, or the kids at least have some kind of restraint.
And for the most part, a lot of the mods that you could do as far as suspension, engine, whatever, they all work on the 4-door too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean the body and trim panels may not be as easy to get,
right?
But you could still make it handle. It stop.
My thought on that is if you're driving, say, a Delta 88 or 98, and it's a 4-door, and you're missing the trim that goes across the rear door of the car, who cares? You're driving the car, drive it without the trim, enjoy the car.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People get hung up on minutia, I think, and what it does, it prevents you from
points off.
Yeah, it prevents you from enjoying the greater good of what you're involved in. So that's where I am at this point in my life. I say just get out there and drive it.
You were asking me what I was seeing here on Long Island. That's what I'm seeing literally all over the country and to a degree all over the world. People are using these cars and they're enjoying them, and they don't really care if they're going to lose a point here and there about something because they're not showing them.
That's great.
They're just not showing them.
Or, I've always said, go to a cruise night. Just go to some place where you display the car. Some guys get off on the trophy. They like the little plastic man. It's
nothing wrong with that if that's what you want.
Not at all.
Right. They need the pat on the back.
Al Handy, Jeep and Al said something to me during the week. It was on a Twitter exchange. I think it was his truck. He's got a Dakota that he brings out, and I said, I commented on how I like it because it was owner built, owner driven, owner engineered, and he was at a judged event. And I said, I'm not a big fan of judged events. I've been a car show judge since the late 70s. I said, I don't need some guy whose judgment is questionable telling me how I built my car. But when one of my friends or contemporaries says something to me, positive or negative, that's what I look for because that's what I'll pay attention to because I know you guys know what you're talking about. That's my trophy.
And you want to hear something great?
Yeah.
Can I mention the name of an insurance company?
Sure.
By all means.
I was at a show recently up at the Vanderbilt Mansion.
Oh, yeah.
Predominantly British cars, but other cars mixed in.
Right.
And I ran into a guy, he's a local representative for Haggerty Insurance. He does not sell insurance. His job is just community outreach. Okay. And they had a youth judging segment.
Oh, fantastic.
Where the kids were walking around, a group of probably 15 or 20 kids were walking around judging the cars.
Yeah, two youths at a time.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. I
thought that was great.
That is good. Haggerty is who insures my cars, by the way. So they are a great company. They're forward-looking. They really take care of you, too. They're a great... This isn't a spot for them, but it's, speaking from my own personal experience... I would look into it if you're looking. So anyway, Steve, we're going to enter into our...
we burned another hour already.
Yeah, we're going to enter into our winter season. We hope to get you back sooner than we had you in last time.
Yeah, don't be a stranger. We'll be the strange
ones.
No
problem.
Thank you for coming in, by the way. You made the hour breeze.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And Joe, we don't have a guest booked for next week. I'm sure we'll...
something will fall out of the whatever.
Know the way things happen around here. We'll figure something out. I'm sure through Plane and Traffic with Lewis, we'll have some guests that they met at.
Yeah, somebody will show up.
And that's it. So for Ray G, Joe D, Steve Linden, Motormouth Radio, we'll be back next week. Thank you, Steve.
WHPC.
90.3. See ya.